So hi, everyone, and welcome to the Doing PR in India webinar by the Chartered Institute of Public Relations, or the CIPR. And we are pleased to have you all here. We see that there are now 20 attendees, so we would wait maybe for a minute or two because we have around twice the number of registrations. So we are hoping to see some more people join us. But in the meantime, I'll just continue with introducing the CIPR itself, which is the world's only PR body which has a royal mandate. And we are celebrating 75 years of the CIPR this year. So it's great to have this panel of speakers with us in this particular year of 2023, which celebrates this exciting milestone for us. And we also have with us, interestingly, members all of the PR foundation called the Promise Foundation, which is run by Mr. Amit Prabhu. He has been very instrumental in making sure that this webinar takes place. And a special thanks to Amit for making this possible. Then with us, we have our moderator, Geetika, whom I would like to introduce as one of the rising stars of the Promise Foundation. And Geetika runs the PR agency ZIVComms in Delhi. And I would now like to hand over to her to introduce all the participants, because I see that we are moving almost to 4:05, and it would be good to then start as much on time as possible. So thank you.
Thank
Geetika.
you.
Yeah,
thank you so much, Nishika. As you already introduced, yes, my name is Geetika, and I'm the founder of a boutique PR firm named ZIVComms. I want to start by thanking CIPR for this initiative. I feel in this era of cross-culture communication, it is actually the need of the hour to, exchange knowledge and share learning experiences across borders. So as part of the Doing PR in series, I am glad that the spotlight now is on India via this particular webinar. And, the idea of bringing together communications professionals from various regions, and geographies in India itself is to deep dive into region-based case studies and real scenarios and experiences. And it is my pleasure to facilitate this discussion and be privy to the views of such a stellar panel, which, I'm now going to introduce. We have Amit Nanchahal, Associate Director, Corporate Communications, PepsiCo, India. We have Ritesh Mehta, Vice President, Communications, Bandhan Bank. And we have Shreya Krishnan, EVP and Head, Marketing and Communications at Aon, India. Before I have them share their views, let me also tell you a little more about them, which is actually quite an interesting introduction. Amit is an experienced communications professional with over 18 years of rich experience, and he excels in developing corporate reputation programs, building and managing leadership positions across themes and content. He has worked with some of the leading names in the sector like Sab Miller, Ola, CII, and now PepsiCo. He believes that a business can grow only when the communities that which they operate grow too. Beyond his work, Amit is a sports enthusiast, an ardent cricket fan, and he's passionate about cooking healthy meals. Welcome, Amit. We look forward to the value addition from your end in today's webinar on how we do PR in India.
Thank
the
you.
second panelist for today is Ritesh Mehta. He's a communications professional with an eye for news because he was formerly a journalist. He's currently working with the Bandhan Bank, which is a leading private sector bank. He has a strong hold on the banking and finance domain. In his role as a reporter, Ritesh has reported on sectors like SEBI and RBI. He has also anchored a half-an-hour show called The Appointment and interviewed top corporates like Deepak Parekh, Sanjeev Bajaj, Chanda Kochar, Aditya Puri, and many more other market leaders. Ritesh believes in working smart and hard. Welcome, Ritesh. It is an honor having you here with us today. And about Shreya Krishnan. She is the finance buyer lead for APAC and heads marketing for Aon in India. She's the CSR specialist and a corporate grooming consultant. She's on the advisory board of 5 organizations and 4 NGOs. She's an NLP practitioner and a Gestalt master therapist. That's just one facet of who she is. She's also active in the spaces of dance, poetry, theater, blogging, modeling, and acting. She considers herself an earth warrior and is an event anchor and trainer. Shreya is also a champion of inclusion and diversity. Welcome, Shreya. So glad to have you on board. So that was, the interesting introduction to our stellar panel today. Let's start with Amit first. Amit, you know why we all are here. So could you share a very brief overview of the PR landscape in your day-to-day work, or if there is, if you see a relevant case study that we can all benefit from, then over to you.
Okay, thank you, Geetika, and good morning, good afternoon, and hi to everyone else, wherever you are. So I'm going to take you through a brief presentation, take you through an interesting case study. But overall, the messaging is very clear. India is a very diverse market, and media is a very complicated industry to manage. So just quickly taking you through a presentation. Just give me a second. All right. Sorry, I hope you can see myself. Okay, so like I said, in India, so while I'm going to briefly talk about the place I stay at, it's North India, which is Delhi. But India is a very, very complicated and a very complex landscape when it comes to media, right? I mean, you can see the numbers on the left. These are huge when it comes to many other markets globally, right? With over 140,000 publications, we have 1,000 dailies, so many newspapers, so many news channels. So to managing that huge, bevy of media portals and media channels, it becomes a challenging task for a communication professional, because any news can, transcend boundaries and reach out to publications or regions which is very, very important to you. For example, PepsiCo, while we are not listed in India, we are globally listed, but any news which makes its way in India reaches out globally because of the internet, and hence it's very important to manage the media, to understand the landscape you're living under. Another interesting insight in India is the social media, the way how social media is expanding in India. We are the fastest growing social media market in the world. The internet penetration is increasing. Mobile subscribers, I mean, if you look at the numbers, 1.15 billion, that's the size of many countries, right? So that was the kind of penetration in terms of mobile, and hence it's also a fantastic opportunity for brands, because it gives you an access to engage with consumers. It gives you more and more avenues to reach out to consumers. But having said that, talking about North India, so while PepsiCo headquarters in India is in New Delhi, in Gurgaon, which is close to New Delhi. So while we manage the media landscape throughout the country, and we have plants, and hence regional media becomes very, very important wherever your local communities are. But from a North India point of view, key markets include, of course, Delhi, Uttar Pradesh, which is almost 300 million population. We have Punjab, Himachal. So these are all key markets up north, where the media penetration is quite high, or some of the leading channels which are based out of Delhi. So majority of channels and newspapers are based out of Delhi, which have other presence in other markets. Some of them are privately owned, and of course, when you have private ownership, there are some biases. We also have a new citizen journalist community which is thriving, which is influencers, and you also have some biases when it comes to that. But yes, we'll talk about that a little later. So these are multi-platform media ecosystem in India. Of course, we have diversified over the period of time from traditional media. Just to let you know, Times of India, the largest English daily in the world. We have Economic Times, one of the biggest financial daily in the world. Then we also have traditional television news channels which are thriving in India. We have hybrid models where now more and more media channels are looking at also having a digital imprint, because with the access of mobile, which we spoke about, and internet penetration, everyone wants the news on the go, right? So a lot of these media portals have pivoted and started having their own presence. We have especially digital, especially among the Gen Z community, right? And then, of course, something which really I feel very, very fascinated about is the the marketing comms or the A&M media, which talks about those fantastic campaigns and purpose-driven narratives, which is Economic Times, Brand Equity, AFAC, and so on and so forth. So that's a quick shot of the kind of media universe we are, challenging with or dealing with in India every day. But also very interesting insights we'll quickly take you through is, how is, say, marketing comms thriving in India. So PepsiCo is one of the biggest FMCGs in India. We're one of the most loved brands in India, and hence for us, marketing is the center of whatever we do. So what the key trends, what we have seen in India over the last few years is that how the storytelling, the importance of storytelling, which communicators basically thrive on, is now transcending various platforms, right? From owned to paid platforms, from social media to print to everything which you get access to. The brands are looking for all form of communication, and nowadays news is not bound by only one form of media, and hence you have different audience can be reached through different strategies, right? Innovative formats. There are a lot of campaigns which we do or news which we tend to focus on, which is just not earlier. For example, we used to focus on, say, print media is something we would go for if we had a media strategy in mind. But now I think with so much choice available to you, you can look at, say, for instance, social media. So a lot of the stories are born on social media, right? We have new formats which are being born every day, whether it is how Reels has become so big. So a lot of stories, a lot of content which is on social media comes with its own storytelling opportunities. And we'll show you some examples also. Another important aspect is first-party data. I think PepsiCo and many other brands in India are working on first-party data, which is, to me, a new currency where you can leverage it to your own advantage. You can basically have a very targeted approach to your messaging to the kind of consumers you want to engage with. And from an FMCG point of view, where we know what our consumers are doing, what are they eating, when are they eating. So I think first-party data definitely helps, and it helps you to do storytelling in a better way. And then lastly, I think, which is a very, very obvious thing, and the numbers say the same, is the digital first approach. I think in India, we are now one of the fastest growing and the youngest country in the world, and fastest growing in terms of social media. And with the Gen Z population, I think content marketing is the focus area for a lot of FMCG or any form of industries. And I think more and more companies are now investing more on digital first approach. And say 10 years back, where the budgets of the company were ranging from 1 or 2% on social. Now, if you ask, the marketing budgets are almost 30 to 25% in terms of digital first, which is a good news for the communicators, because we can do a lot of stuff on digital and then do storytelling around that. So the next, I want to just quickly take you through a very interesting example. I was asked to share this case study. This is very close to my heart. I don't know how many of you know this, but this was a global campaign of Lay's, which was earlier launched in US, in Thailand, China, and then made its way to India in 2019. Right. So what made the campaign special was that we took a 360-degree approach on leveraging various forms of communication. This campaign was launched on social media, was launched through influencers. It had its own journey where it kept getting various legs of storytelling, which kept the campaign going forward. And eventually, we were able to reach out to a larger chunk of our consumers, create huge buzz and milestones through it. And finally, the icing on the cake was it won more than 50 awards. And I'm so happy to say that majority of the awards were communication and influencer-led. In fact, this is a case study of how influencer marketing actually took off in India in 2017-18, when influencers were starting to, become obvious or were becoming mainstream. And then a lot of brands then got into it. And now, if you see, India is one of the fastest growing market when it comes to influencers, and brands are having an amazing time engaging with them and doing storytelling around that. So this was when the Lay's launched special smile campaign where the packs had the smiles of people. So we actually went and shot with some celebrities and put their smiles on the packs, depending on the kind of moods people had in India. This is very well researched. But what followed was very interesting. We actually went ahead and spoke to thousands of influencers and got them to be part of this campaign, including media. And then we got the entire consumers joining the campaign. We had, bean bakers joining the campaign, and it became a huge movement of thought where people wanted to partner with it. And with it, we were able to do so much of organic storytelling. And it ended up, like I said, winning so many awards. And of course, it had a positive impact on the brand. So that's very important in terms of market share and sales and so on and so forth, which will take you through the case study in the next. I'm just going to play this for you. I hope you can.
In India, Lay's is a favored brand thanks to a constant pipeline of innovation. But with the only brand news in the coming year being a packaging change that was previously launched in other countries, we needed to find a way to drive excitement, engagement, and most importantly, local relevance at scale. In previous launches, celebrities were used to drive the introduction of the Lay's Smile Bag, recognizing the power of influencers in India as a trusted source of information. Instead of putting a famous person behind the bag, we decided to personalize the packs and put somebody on the bag, specifically over 1,450 influencers. Our mass customization influencer strategy instantly grabbed the attention of the entire country. And with visuals of the smile packs flooding people's feeds, we put Lay's front and center of social conversation. The campaign's success was further validated by regular people joining influencers using the smile packs for posts, creating what was essentially an Instagram roadblock. Yes, we set the internet ablaze, and the results of our influencer-driven activation prove the success of our strategy. The campaign improved the brand's imagery scores beyond expectations, and the brand recorded the highest equity score since 2014. With only a packaging change, we not only changed brand attributes, we also created a huge splash of smiles on social media that penetrated pop culture. Lay's packaging change was embraced by the entire country, creating a tsunami of posts, conversations, and memes. Now, that's something definitely worth smiling about.
That was the very famous campaign in India. And yes, that's it from my side, guys. Open to questions later on.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Amit. You actually captured in your first 4 or 5 slides all the top 5 points that I think the communication ecosphere, and that's like the thing of our discussion these days, whether it's PR plus, and influencers becoming celebrities and regional nuances. So you covered it pretty well. Ritesh, do you also feel that, I mean, it's not an unknown fact that yes, media culturally, differs from city to city. And yes, I know that our day-to-day might mean a pan-India approach always, but, considering the brands that you all work with, but we wanted, there's always a question that we all know that Mumbai media is different from Delhi media and Bangalore, but do you feel it in your day-to-day life when it is about regional media, that are there certain nuances and cultural differences as well?
Oh, indeed. Firstly, thanks a lot for having me here along with all the dignitaries out there. To answer to your question, I definitely feel that, given the kind of diverse market India is, and, even in India, the cities has a different, media presence and a different kind of culture in effect, if to say, so to say. I mean, Amit clearly explained as how the diverse market of Delhi media is, and largely he gave us a picture of the national media in India. But if you behave, if you try to look at the regional market in India, it's totally different, and the way we approach is totally different. In fact, I have a classic case example of how we driven a case study based on the regional market media approach, and what led to that success. But I'll come to that later. But sitting in Bombay, working in Bombay is a differently altogether experience, because Bombay is always giving us a different cultural vibe, diversified, understanding of how things are here. So it clearly gives us that kind of a feeling how India works, how Bombay works, and Bombay is largely a reflection of what the whole India is. But the regional flavor, if you have to say so, kind of in terms of culture, is there at all, but slightly missing, because it's largely a tier 1 city from that perspective. let me take what a small presentation what I've prepared from, firstly given a Bombay, it's the, the population of about 30 to 35 million population, much larger than a lot of countries in the world. And that's the only population of the MMR region. That's for the last census. Bombay is also called the financial capital of India because all the regulators, all the big banks, all the big financial institutions, majority of the economy of the country is driven from Bombay. I can also call it as a PR capital of the country because most of the PR agencies headquarters are based out of Bombay. The large ones, at least the top 10, most of them are based out of Bombay. So I also call it as a PR capital coming from that kind of background. And largely, last but not the least, the entertainment capital of India, the Bollywood, I think, which most of us hear about, the most of us are fans of, and the most of us have seen through. Bombay is indeed the capital. People call Bombay as a city of dreams. People come here, a lot of people only come to Bombay to make a career in the entertainment industry. Fortunately, unfortunately, some people make it, some people don't. But it is indeed a capital, entertainment capital of the country, as sure. What are the sectors? Couple of sectors which are very specific to Bombay. Which has a lot of PR, services requirement, if we have to say so. Given the kind of approach, Amit has taken us through the kind of national media presence we have. I will skip through that, but the sectors which are largely, specifically to Bombay, as I said, capital of country, financial capital of the country. So banking and financial services, goes without saying that is the kind of sector which is largely requiring the banking, the PR services from the different stakeholders. Indian corporate conglomerates, the big corporates of the country, the Tatas, the Birlas, the Ambanis of the country are based out of Bombay. Their headquarters, they stay in Bombay. So the big conglomerates also required because bigger the corporate houses, bigger the teams of the PR services. As I said, Bombay is the Bollywood capital or the entertainment capital. So and the way Bollywood has been going, there are a lot of services, there are a lot of work required in the PR services for the Bollywood and entertainment. Most of these celebrities are based out of Bombay, and most of them have individual PR teams or individual PR agencies who work for them. In fact, we have seen a new trend of regulators hiring, regulators like RBI, SEBI, and PFRDA. Though PFRDA is not based out of Bombay, but Reserve Bank of India and Securities and Exchange Board of India, which is the banking regulator and the stock market regulator of the country, also hiring professional PR guys. So that's one requirement. And government obviously requires PR services with the way the Indian politics is going around. So after Delhi, I think the second hub of the politics is Bombay. So government also requires, a lot of government guys are also hiring professional PR guys right now. So I come from a financial services background. I have worked for largely most of the banks, largely big banks across the country. I was a reporter, as it was said in my introduction. So there also I covered largely financial services. So I would want to take through the certain challenges which we faced as a sector, and being Bombay, and I'm talking about not me in person, but largely as a sector, which is a Bombay heavy sector. Banking and financial services in India is a highly regulated sector. We just can't go out and do any kind of marketing, any kind of PR out there just because we want to do that. It's not possible. A regulator has a keen eye on us every now and then. There are people sitting in the building of Reserve Bank of India and Securities and Exchange Board of India. There are numerous regulations which come in day out. We had a very recent new regulation of any news which is written by the media has to be clarified by the organization. That's one example which has recently come in. And the news media is writing an article, but it's the owners of the corporate house as a listed company to clarify on that news whether it's true or not. So that's just one example. But as I said, we are a highly regulated sector, so that there are a lot of challenges in terms of what we can talk, what we cannot talk. There are certain restrictions in terms of data points which we can give out. Second, banking and financial.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's sensitive also because there's so many numbers and stats and figures involved, just cannot afford to go little one, like 0 to 1 and no mistake. There's no scope for that. Yeah.
Exactly. That's the second point. It's very technical. It's very numerical. So, it's very difficult for a lot of people to grasp it. As an individual, we also find sometimes it's confusing that what numbers are right, what numbers, what means. So that's a very technical subject. It's not very relevant for a lot of common people, but at the same time, we have to talk about it. So it's a very technical subject. A third and very important point, third and fourth point are very important from a banking and financial services media, from a company perspective. It's a service and people dependent. A bank like Bandhan has about 6,000 banking outlets. Just an example, and it's widely distributed. And out of this, 70% is rural. One person doing some small mistake in some small village of the country can make a big hue and cry across the country. So it's very people dependent. Some deficient in services. It's not that I can control sitting here. I don't have a control on 70,000 employees of Bandhan, 6,000 branches across the country. So there are small rural villages, and we don't know what is in what they speak, what they do. So it's very people dependent, individual dependent, service dependent. And fourth point, which I was talking about, another important point is, end of the day, it is all our money. Even if it is a single rupee, it is the money of an individual who's put in trust in the organization. So, it's very sensitive, as what Geetika was saying, because, even one small rupee here and there can make a lot of difference to your kind of brand reputation at the end of the day. One small mistake and you are lost, actually. Education is one important part of it, because a lot of people in India specifically, the financial literacy is not much there. So as a part of the corporate communication, as a part of the PR services, what we also have to do is engage and educate our customers and prospective customers, as well as their individual existing customers, about the financial services and the new regulations, and with the frauds coming in every day, new kind of initiatives or new kind of creativity which we're doing in scam, or we are seeing in the scams and frauds which are happening. So we have to continue to educate people and educate our customers. Media landscape in Mumbai specifically, it's a hub for financial media, because again, Bombay is the capital, financial capital. So it's a hub for financial media, the pink papers. It has major presence across all the media. Second to New Delhi, I think New Delhi has more sort of media than Delhi, because of the political capital being New Delhi. But I think most of the representatives of all the major newspapers, major social media, major digital media, news channels, everybody has a presence in Bombay. It's a very vibrant and a diverse media landscape, because digital is picking up, and digital is picking up big time. But at the same time, traditional media continues to grow. People have not lost that interest that we won't read the traditional newspaper. People still read newspaper. At the same time, people still want to read the same digital publication as well. As I said, presence of major national and international media across the country.
Yeah,
and one
yeah.
important point is,
yeah. Please go ahead. Sorry,
one last point. In terms of vernacular media language, vernacular regional language media presence is also very high in Bombay. Bombay has a Hindi, Marathi, Gujarati, a lot of media, and Western and Southern market media presence also in Bombay, because being the financial capital, we have a lot of people and a lot of publication presence from the vernacular languages, which are present, regional languages which are present in Bombay. And one last point, which Geetika, where we've started from, actually, the regional media difference which we find. So Bombay is a mix of all those hubs. End of the day, because even a Hindi speaking audience will have been Bombay. It's a very cosmo culture, and even in terms of media, we find that kind of culture in Bombay.
Yeah. In fact, when you say that high presence of vernacular, yes, Gujarati, there's Marathi, and of course, a little bit of Hindi is there, and then English press. So I see that in vernacular press, it's like a given and an unsaid thing, that very like a culture thing, that they'll travel in packs. Okay, if they're invited to conferences, they'll go in a group. So, and if one is not liking a certain something, boycotting, the pack stands up for them. So that's a very. And also felt as a PR professional myself for the last 15 years, 16 years, I've been in this space, and I felt that there's a certain warmth in Bombay media. I don't know. I'm just comparing. I've worked in Bangalore scenario as well. So Delhi, Bangalore, and Bombay. I feel Bombay media is a little warmer, or maybe the lifestyle luxury stuff happens in Delhi. So I find there's a certain air. When you talk to the media in Delhi. So that's what I felt. But yeah, on your point of, digital or print, I felt that I was sitting this is just a small experience. I was sitting in a conference, and there was this 70 years old gentleman, always, of course, a communication veteran. And he said till today, he reads 17 newspapers every day. And, we were talking digital to him. He said, yeah, that has its own, presence now, but print is, and there's some people still with the mindset that print will never lose its charm. And I feel that's true when you hold a glossy in your hand and, you want to just scroll through the pages. So yeah, that conversation still remains and the argument still remains whether it's digital or print. But yeah, thank you so much, Ritesh, for sharing this from your lens, the media landscape in Mumbai, and about the whole, financial capital and PR capital in India. Shreya, what are your views? Have you also felt a certain difference when you compare Bangalore media, or has it never been so region specific for you in your everyday, day-to-day PR campaign executions?
So actually, it completely depends on the kind of brand you are, right? So I think it's very specific to, are you B2B, are you B2C? From a B2B perspective at Aeon, I think Bangalore, Delhi, Bombay, for us, we're looking at not just pan-India, we're also looking at pan-Asia and pan-APAC. So it rests within the region. In Asia Pacific, there's a certain mandate that gets culled down into the Asia mandate. The Asia mandate distills further into the India mandate. So I think fundamentally when we look at that, it shifts and it changes. But when we were under which was the company that Aeon was before we became Aeon 100%, the entire approach was to go across pan-India and announce the fact that here we are, this is what we do. And in a small range of time, which was under 5 years, we went from being a 15-member organization to now we're over 500 with 50,000 colleagues around the world. So the transitions of that meant that we were to look at this as a mandate that was very, very pan-India in terms of the way we approached it. All right. So when you look at specifically a B2B brand like Aeon, it becomes a very across the board kind of an approach. Whereas if you were to look at finer nuances of brands that were to be local and, especially if you're looking at employer branding and you're looking at specific markets, and if you're looking at communicating with those kind of communities locally, then it becomes more of a localized market. So I'll give you an example or a case study of how something that was very specific to Bangalore panned out. This is in our previous organization, it's a background screening and verifications company. This was Sunday night, and I remember it so clearly. It's one of those things, right? When a crisis hits, you remember it exactly how it played out. So there was a Kaveri issue that was going on at that time, and this employee who was from Tamil Nadu, who was based out of the Bangalore office, who very randomly on some Facebook community platform, happened to leave a message on, the water issue that was going on. And it was not a very sweetly done message. It was quite a volatile, sort of an instigatory kind of a message. And suddenly what I realized is I started getting notifications saying our Facebook rating of the organization page kept dropping, and we were like at a 4.9 rating, and overnight suddenly our rating has come to like minus, and we're getting a lot of messages. So when we dug a little deeper, we realized this is what had happened, and she happened to have the name of the company listed as employed at, or working with, and that was all it was. But what went on to happen was we had furore going on both in the Bangalore and Chennai offices. The Bangalore community was up in arms. We had to ask that people to walk around without the ID cards because the name suddenly was known. There were people waiting. We were thankfully in an SEZ. It was a hub. And there were people waiting to, stone pelt stones. And it was very, how Bangalore gets, right? When, there are bus tires burning and there's a lot of that kind of energy. So we sort of had to take measures physically. We had to take measures on social media. So we had to do a lot of that. Our phones were ringing nonstop by lawyers, people from the Kannada Rakshana Vedike, all of these guys calling in. And it was a bit of a struggle to sort of manage that. So from Sunday night, I think by the time it was Tuesday, we had moved her out of the office. We had given her a leave of absence. We had said, please don't come back. Please don't surface. By the time she had already deleted her account, but there were screenshots going around. So we were like, please be careful, wear a mask if you're coming to the office. You shouldn't be seen. And people in Chennai reached the Chennai office and said, oh my God, if you take any action against her, we will ensure that, we will harm you all in the Chennai office. So it was also about safety of our colleagues and our employees. It was about the brand of the organization, what we were putting out there. So I think that was very specific to a cultural nuance or a significance that took place. Now, after that, we went into crisis communication mode. We had to roll out social media policies for our colleagues. We had to roll out, methodologies of how do you say, even if you're saying something, even if it's your opinion, how you should be careful about how you're saying it because it reflects on the brand that you're associated with and working with. So there was an entire series of that happened. And then we had to issue a press note and a statement to say that, this was not our opinion and we are supportive of both communities equally and, we to bring back a semblance of balance. So it was a very high risk, highly volatile situation. But I think the learnings from there are so many and so infinite. And that I would call as a case study, which is very specific to a Bangalore. The cultural nuances around it would have to be people who knew the local language had to interact and intervene. So it becomes also very about who's dealing, who's doing the talking, who's, appeasing people and asking them to calm down and say what we said. We also realized how we were saying it was important because the apology, we didn't share an opinion. So the apology shouldn't be us apologizing for what was said, but us saying we don't take ownership and responsibility. This is an individual, their statements are, theirs. And while we take accountability overall for the way probably a colleague behaved or said something, we didn't want to take on the ownership and responsibility of what was said and what that triggered. There was pieces in the media, there was all of this that was going on. So when I think back in my entire career, that's probably the one time I think it was so important about where the region was, what the cultural nuance was, what the context was, what the setting was. So that is a case study that comes to my mind. But speaking about Aeon, I think the approach is entirely pan-India. Let's get talking, let's get these conversations going. And because it's B2B also, it's more, mandated in such a formal manner. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that experience in a very interesting manner, Shreya. I'm looking at the time also. So though I want to keep it very interactive and like a freewheeling responses, but my second question now, and I know we've discussed what the PR scenarios based on different cities and regions, if we felt, and but now let's also talk about, some future trends. And I'm going to go back to Amit for this now. Amit, maybe, like very quickly, if you can give us those top 4 future trends in the PR sector, keeping India in mind, that where we are currently and very realistically that can we, shoot up there in next 5 years or 3 years realistically, then according to you, what are those top future trends in the PR landscape?
Okay, thanks, Geetika. I think one thing is very common. I think India might be leading that is that there is a lot of content overload which is happening. Right? There's so much of content which we go through every day. And I don't know how many of us are reading those 50 newspapers, the example which you mentioned. I don't think it's technically possible right now because you have to go through so many things. So I think one of the important trends which will definitely come out of India and India is going to lead is that, how social media is going to be the mainstream form of media going forward in a few years, right? Where a lot of the young population is now hooked up on social media. So news which will then be generated from social media will become something very, very mainstream. I think that's one. I think second trend which we also saw recently at the Cannes Marketing Awards was the fact of purpose being the center of communication. Right? A lot of brands, a lot of corporates are looking at purpose being very, very mainstream now. And the storytelling or the art of writing storytelling is coming through purpose-driven narratives. At PepsiCo, I'm super proud to say that we recently won 4 Cannes Awards, and all the awards were from projects around agri, which were driven by the comms team, right? And imagine the days where comms are getting Cannes Awards, right? So I think that's the new trend which is going to emerge, and many corporates are going to be looking into it, and India is going to drive that. I think third important trend is the use of AI, and a lot of has been spoken on AI already and innovation. But the fact is that how that's going to become a talking point in terms of innovations in your brand, innovation in the way you do storytelling. So I think these are top 3 trends which to me are going to be very, very relevant and very, very focused from corporates and firms point of view, in my view. And lastly, I mean, regional media is going to stay there for sure. A lot of people have said that regional is not going to be there, or there is no appetite for print media. I think those are old school media houses. They're going to stay there because they will have a relevance. Having said that, right? So I think they have a space for itself. Now, what pace do they grow? We have to see, but they will still command that sort of respect and relevance in years to come.
Yeah, and I think Shreya also mentioned very rightly that B2B and B2C. So yeah, those journals, certain trade publications, really old ones, they have their own loyalists and they're purely for the industry. So yeah, definitely, there's some of the publications are here to stay for sure. So Ritesh, I believe you have a case study, but looking at the time, if we can jump to quickly, what are the future trends that you think are going to rule the PR sector in India? You're on mute.
Couple of points which I think can shape the future of PR trend across the country, and I think that largely stands true across the country, not any specific wise. I honestly see some sort of consolidation happening going forward, because over the last few years, if you have seen, there are a lot of digital media platforms coming in, there are a lot of news media platform coming in. Social media continues, that will remain and that will actually improve. But in terms of the traditional media, which I call it as a print and the television media, I think a lot of consolidation is on the brink. It's waiting to happen. So that's going to happen, and that will actually change the way we function. At the same time, I totally agree with Amit what he said in the digital. The regional media is here to stay. Most of us, sitting outside, most of us people sitting outside the country may think that regional media doesn't play much of a role, but trust me, I think regional media plays much better and much important role than any national media would play, at least in a country like India. And I specifically believe that regional media going forward will have a more say than now. That's second point. And third, last 2.1 is on the data and analytics part, because with AI coming in, data and analytics coming in, I think that will going forward change the trend, the way we function as a PR fraternity, and we will have to kind of align with that kind of fraternity, because we in our organization trying to change those things with the help of data and analytics team. And lastly, again, just at the point of repeating, digital and social media will have an important role to play, because especially in the Indian market, we've seen a lot of influencers, YouTubers, and if you just Google, there are at least 100 YouTubers, and everybody has a huge fan following, and especially in terms of politics, in terms of business. And we have not even heard of it, but you will come to know that somebody is kind of damaging your reputation, brand reputation. So that continue will happen, and all of them put together will actually increase the role what as PR professionals we are doing right now, and especially with the kind of new rules and regulations coming in, I think we have a lot more to play going forward from here.
Wow. Okay, nicely captured. Ritesh, Shreya, would you want to add to that?
These two have spoken about mostly all of the trends that we
covered everything.
So what I will say is I aspire for some trends for the reputation world to see. I aspire for more deeper research and interaction between journalists and PR folks, sort of seamlessly understanding and acknowledging that it is an ecosystem that chives off of each other. And it would be amazing to see that being celebrated a lot more. I think there's so much merit in sort of working together to make that happen. I think reputation is so steeply built on those relationships. So one thing that's not going to change with ChatGPT or AI is deeply formed, well-established relationships where you have that, connection that you've built with this person who is part of the ecosystem. So I'm wanting and hoping to see more of that. I keep saying that there is so many forms of measurement and there's so much innovation going on. It's become very fluid. I would love to see for more of deeply ingrained PR and campaigns that are more reputation aligned, more than advertising-ish, sort of leaning towards that. I would like to see more of ideated campaigns around strong PR ideologies and things like that. And I would love to see for us to be able to measure how all of this comes together in form of building and helping hold up the brand, because only during a crisis is often where there's suddenly so much of attention, but is there a possibility for us to look at this as a collective and measure consistently, look at impact in a day and, see how we can really quantify the value that PR and reputation brings to the table.
Wow,
If I
as
can
they
just
say,
add one more point.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I just add one more point? So specifically in Indian markets, and I think a couple of us missed out on that point. And specifically when I compare Western markets to Indian markets, we don't see the focus that much comparatively on the employee communication, employee relations, and all. I think that piece of internal communication and employee communication will go on rise from here. We see that kind of trend a lot in the MNCs, but as far as Indian companies are concerned, that trend is not much there. And even if it is there, we will see a large focus increase on those particular areas going forward from here.
Yeah. So I was just summing up Shreya's point, saying that, yeah, as we say, it's the R in PR, it's the relationship part in PR. So yeah, internal communication should also gain more importance. I think we are creating our little, advocates and endorsers, nurturing our community within our offices. So definitely that should pick up. It's the Q&A time now, and I have the first question for Shreya, which I think Shreya could answer.
Yes.
Okay, where can we place the government as a stakeholder in your plans? I assumed as British organization that we would want to include government in any attempt at launching product or service in India.
So I think, I think public policy is very important. And I think the Indian government and the way the democracy is aligned, the way there is a national and then a local, and there are multiple bodies involved. But what I think works well is to understand that public policy is also about the secretariat and the people who are working in areas which are very close to the ground. So it's about getting the government involved, especially if it's a product or a service that's coming into India, to sort of do all of the mandatory pieces of compliance, of course, but to also build relationships within that public policy framework for us to be able to approach the right kind of people, to be able to build the right kind of landscape. And if you look at people who've done this really well, large organizations that are developing the country, that are investing in the country, have always had the backing and support of the government in terms of growth. So I think it's also the right kind of approach to do. And I would think, yes, it's imperative to look at public policy if you're going to begin anything in India, because without that, I can give an example of Aeon. It took us a while from the time we were Amit to become Aeon. So the kind of cycles that are involved are long form. So the timelines have to be factored in, when the plans are being crafted.
Yeah. I see. Thank you, Shreya. There is a question for Amit.
Yeah. Please go ahead. I want to add something to the last question also, and then this one too. Go ahead.
Please.
No, what's the question? Tell me what's the question.
Oh, I thought you were saying I will add to Shreya's answer for the last question. That's what you said.
I'll add that, but you tell me the question.
Okay. So the one for you is, considering the rich PR industry in India, how do you see the role of digital PR, both as opportunity and as a challenge? To what extent can digital be incorporated into traditional, or will both be distinct from each other? We've been
Okay. So digital is very close to my heart. But before that, I just want to say that while government advocacy is very important, I also feel that given the fact that a lot of corporates are now working with government in terms of projects which are purpose-driven. To give an example, at PepsiCo, where we do stuff on, say, millet. Millet is a very important focus area for the government of India. We are celebrating the decade for millets in India. And hence, it's very important for the PPGA, which is the public policy and the comms team, to work together to drive narratives. So at PepsiCo, we have one team, which is the comms and the public policy team. We have one department. So that's the first part is done. We work very closely. And second is that when we're doing storytelling, I think it's very important to work very closely with the government folks, because eventually the success of the program depends on how you do advocacy and relationship building with the local stakeholders. Hence, the government role becomes very, very important. And that's what we're doing through a lot of our campaigns. Now, in terms of digital and how we want to leverage digital and traditional PR, I think if you're not doing digital at this point of time, in terms of whatever industry you are right now, I think you're losing an opportunity. I think digital is such a big revolution in India, and you got every and any consumer sitting out there. We've got one of the biggest telephone operators giving away data for free, right? We've got one of the biggest cricketing World Cup coming very soon. I mean, everyone is hooked on social media, and for brands to tell their story, I think digital is now intrinsic part of the 360 planning. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity for the comms team to quickly navigate that and leverage that and work very closely with the brand guys, because through that you can not only do purpose-driven communication, but also you can do brand-driven communication, which I think a lot of corporates are not doing. And to me, the more you invest in digital, I think it will give you that sort of value for money, where you can track also. The good part is with digital, you can track. You can come back and see where you are, who are you going to reach out to. So I think that sort of minute targeting is through digital. So fully digital is here to stay, and it's going to rise as we move forward.
They'll kind of go hand in hand. They'll sort of complement or support each other. They're both the functions and have to go parallelly. Ritesh, the next question is for you, because we believe the working hours are the longest in Mumbai. Comms and PR in India have always been busy. So how are practitioners helping change perspectives around colleagues, employees, and your own work-life balance? This is based on anecdotal experiences over the years, in-house and agency, where culturally it's seen as a badge of honor to work long hours and often past official working hours, including weekends and holidays, without matching with increased pay.
That's actually an apt question at this hour, and specifically, at least if I can talk about our organization, in my current organization at least, we try to maintain as much, and that's the culture we try to build in on to maintain the healthy work-life balance. There are days when you have to be there. You have to be there. There is no, you can't ignore it. Just my example, last week we had a couple of board meetings. We were all working in office till the core team was working in office till 2 a.m., 3 a.m. But that's couple of days in a quarter. But that's not always the case. However, that's a very important aspect of the work-life balance, and especially I have been on the agency side. I've been on the media side. And I've seen the kind of working hours which any agency guys or any media guys go through, including the comms guys. But comms, I'm still saying it's a lot better, comparatively better. We can also have that kind of in the comms culture. But as far as media and as far as the PR agency guys, I have seen people struggling, and that kind of culture, culture change is very important. Otherwise, and that's why we are facing that kind of high amount of attrition on both these spaces. So that kind of would lead an important change which we need going forward, and that perspective and that mindset needs to be changed. That extra working hours will lead us that kind of productivity. Because at the end of the day, the extra working hours doesn't lead to much high productivity. It definitely impacts the minds of the people in terms of the brand you're working for.
I really look at it as work-life integration. There are days when you're needed, like if you have crazy schedules, and then there are decompressed days. I think just the same way workplaces are evolving, I think I do know that some of the agencies and the PR fraternity, and some, of course, based on the organizations that they work for, are looking at more, evolutionary ways of working, where they're looking at, can we provide leave based on mental health? Is there support that needs to be given? Are there days that can be just free days? Are there learning days? So I think there is a lot of work that's being done in sort of changing the model and the way we look at work itself. And that's happening across the board. So I do see some of that spilling over into the lives that we all lead as PR reputation professionals as well.
Okay. Ritesh, I have another question for you. Does the PR community in India have a role to play in presenting India on the global stage as the economic powerhouse of the future?
Well, there is no second doubt on that one. We as a PR professional has a very, very important role to play to project India as a super economic power of in the world at the world platform. And we have seen couple of our senior colleagues in India, a couple of senior professionals in India, going on important platforms and presenting. We have important, colleagues who have been representing the India at the global forums. And the way Indian economy is developing, we're the fastest growing economy in the country. Most of us work with large corporate houses and have international presence, or at least international recognition we have. And at every platform, at least at our current organization, and I'm sure most of us do that. I mean, I can stick my neck out and say that, most of us who work with, international counterparts, we have a very important role to play, and we continue to do that, because the way Indian economy is growing and the way the role Indian economy is going to play at the world stage, as professionals, as PR professionals at our company level, at our brand level, as well as at the national level, we have a lot to say, we have a lot to do, and it's a very important role we will play. And I think we will play a very pivotal role, at least in the international space, in recognizing India as the brightest economic future.
Thank you. Shreya or Amit, anyone can answer, because either, from a policy perspective, you, Shreya, and from a media perspective, Amit, what media in India is interested in academic research papers and findings? Yeah.
Yeah, I think especially if you look at sectors like automotive or even deep engineering segments, or if you look at insurance itself and IRDA, there are enough academic research publications. You don't really hear about them. I have heard that there are institutions that invest only in ball bearing and fitting. To that degree, you hear of architecture communities that are publishing papers. You hear of healthcare itself having a lot of academic research papers. Some of these are in conjunction with colleges. Some of these are independent bodies, but there are a lot of them, and they're very, very diverse. And based on the sector, you'll have, if you do the research, you'll realize that it's a nice diaspora.
Amit, do you have any comment, or I have another question for you otherwise?
There are a lot of emerging sectors also who are looking into, and a lot of startups are looking into this field, right? Where they are looking into engineering, or even when it comes to FMCG world, when we talked about first party data, we have scientists who are working on creating insights into data, and for that a lot of research papers are also required to see what sort of technologies you're using, and so on and so forth. So I'm saying there's appetite for many industries, but what Shreya mentioned are mainstream, and which comes to your mind immediately.
Yeah. Okay, and I think the next questions come for Amit, particularly because Amit's based in Delhi, NCR. So people think that because it's the political capital of India, how much is PR activity in India oriented towards nation building as it is in Singapore and China?
I mean, I'm hooked up to news every day, and I feel that so there's lots being done by PR in terms of nation building, positive messaging which has gone out. The other day I was in New York talking to my colleagues, and they were all excited to welcome the Prime Minister Modi. This was in March, right? And and I was speaking to them now a few weeks back. I think they were all talking about great things about India, and I think the global world is now interested in India, in whatever we are doing, and that's one of the key reasons has to be attributable to the work which PR has done in taking the India news outside, right? Because there's a lot of work happening across the world, but India is now one of the leading nations, 5th largest economy, going to be 3rd largest in few years to come, 7 years from now. And the fact is that there's been so much work, research, development happening in the country, and I think PR is projecting that in a positive way. Of course, there would be few incidents here and there, which you don't want to go into details, which is a problem in many countries. But the fact is, overall, if you ask the nation's reputation, I think it's been projected in a very, very positive way. And the world is looking upon to India as a very superpower nation, rather than as an afterthought, which used to be the case years back. So I think good news.
Yay for all of us. I must say the audience throwing such amazing questions. The last one's for all of you. I'm throwing it open for the full panel. As we speak about data analytics, to which extent can AI and PR and media industry with the chat GPT craze? No, one second. As we speak about data analytics, to what extent can AI alter PR and media industry with chat GPT craze? Yeah. Who would want to go first with it?
I can just quickly go. I think PR industry is looking at it. I think there's a lot of news about it also. But people are even testing it. The other day we had some Gen Z people, they were interning with me and they were telling me, so we found this on ChatGPT. But the fact is still early days, right? There's lots and lots to happen, lots and lots to be researched more. And it's like any new exciting thing which happens, people tend to talk about it. The other day when Instagram launched Threads, every other person was talking about it, right? So I think it's the efficacy has to be seen from a long-term lens, right? And I think, and for that we need to wait for some time, but early signs are pretty good and sounds pretty exciting.
So my point of view on my point of view on that one is slightly different. I agree with Amit when as far as saying that we have to see the longevity, but in PR specifically, as far as I may be from a old school thought, but I quickly believe that PR role plays into two diverse baskets. One is in parts of let's say content and all that thing, but second part is of the human touch or the relationship which we maintain. The word itself says public relations, so that human touch will definitely not come from ChatGPT. So it can definitely help to some sort of reducing your workload by putting in content, but end of the day you still require your manual intervention. And I don't think at least from the time what I've seen in the last couple of months, I don't think you can totally depend on kind of just get something and it's ready to go. I don't think it's there as yet, but yes, I mean we'll have to wait and see. But end of the day, I don't think you can't replace human intervention or human thing from that because of the ChatGPT or AI going forward.
Yeah. Shreya, your views on whether that can alter our, PR.
So I keep saying that if there is something that's automated and that is coming up, it automatically means there's more room for innovation and growth. So if it's going to take away, across the board, right? If it's going to take away things that people struggle with or that are time consuming, then you have more time to do something more interesting or more exciting or more fruitful. So I think it's for us to wait and watch to see to what extent of this is going to be authentic and steeped in reality, and for how long that can sustain, because there are some things that you can get away with by sourcing and crowdsourcing information, whereas some things have to be authentic, real, and created. And there is a creative aspect that comes in, which is a layer that AI currently is not going to be able to. I mean, they can make incredibly almost real fake images. But the point is, nothing beats the real. Like a Ravi Verma print is a Ravi Verma print. It's not a Ravi Verma's original painting. And I think that's true for all kinds of creativity in writing and art. And I think that's what I believe.
Yeah. Human factor will remain true. So yeah, I think there are more questions in the Q&A box. If you feel you have the bandwidth, you can go and answer them live in maybe short responses. I see a very interesting one here. Nishika, do we have more time?
I think we can, because we can run over by around 10-15 minutes easily. And I see that the audience is extremely engaged. So I think
there are many questions. I've only taken 4 or 5 of them. There's a very interesting question by Vishal. He says, there was a recent case when actor Abhishek Bachchan brought a YouTuber to court when the latter made claims about his daughter falsely suffering from a disease that led to a ban, according to media reports. From a credibility standpoint, how does the PR fight such inaccuracies or fake news impacting a client, and to whether the PR agency role really fits into such a situation that can appear quite tricky?
Yeah, I know this case. I had read that. So there are 2 ways of looking at it, right? So this was a personal incident which happened with the celebrity, right? So, and of course, if you're looking at what a PR response to this could have been, or was that the right response, I think So, I mean, two ways of looking at, like I said, if Amitabh Bachchan's son Abhishek was presented as a celebrity from one of the brands, so there could be one strategy that how do you remain aloof from that issue. The other issue is that we also have PR agencies managing celebrities, right? So they also need to guide those celebrities in, what needs to be said and what not. I think in this instance, you can say the unfortunate part in India is that because we spoke about the landscape in the beginning, that any news and every news make it to the news is also kind of a boon and a bane, right? So if any small incident from a celebrity happens, it tend to make those news channels. But I think for this one, it was covered by media, but I think within few days it got over because people understood that that was not the correct information. I think social media plays a very key role where influencers came and spoke about it and clarified all the myths which were behind it. So I think the lifeline of such reports also is very less. While it gives you kind of a impetus, but it's very less. And I think people who are very genuine, they come and clarify. There are also a lot of channels who are kind of taking care of this fake news and all, which also helps on social media. But I think it was not that big an issue. There have been many bigger issues in India on celebrities which have made the news, and then they have been overpowered by some other news in India. But that keeps happening, and like for in the house of PepsiCo, where we work with all these celebrities, I think we have a system of managing such sort of communication, and we have teams who are quite equipped to do social listening and see what is our course of action.
Right. Okay, so I would also like Samantha, who is the chair at CIPR, to please address the panel and have maybe your concluding remarks or talk about your other initiatives. So Nishika, if you could invite Samantha.
Yeah, Samantha, I would just like to add before this that this webinar is being done by CIPR International, which is the international arm of the Chartered Institute of Public Relations. And Samantha is the chair of that committee. So the CIPR International is meant for people who are based overseas and are not in the United Kingdom itself. And it helps people such as a majority of the attendees on this call, who I could see are based in all parts of the world, to be part of the CIPR and to contribute to our efforts. So thank you again. And now I'd like to ask Samantha to say a few words as the chair.
Well, thank you very much, Nishika. I must say this has been an excellent webinar. So really thank you very much to Amit, to Shreya, and to Ritesh for sharing all of their insights and experience with us. Also to Geetika for the excellent moderation, and to Nishika for the hosting and the organization. So as we were saying, that this is an event of the CIPR International Group, and I am myself the chair. We do have a number of other events coming up over the second half of the year, as this is the 75th anniversary of the Chartered Institute of Public Relations. And so just to let you know that, for example, in October, we're going to be having one of our main events of the year, which is called the Maggie Nally Lecture, which is going to be with an extremely eminent international speaker. Also, probably later in October, we will be having our annual general meeting, where we will also be having a panel discussion on a hot topic to be announced. So I would invite everyone here, do follow us on our social media page, in particular our LinkedIn page, which has the name CIPR International Group. We very much hope to see many of you on more events for this year, and we'd like to thank all of you for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Samantha. Thank you, Nishika. Thank you, all our panelists, and thank you for this opportunity. I feel when we agree to participate, to be in a on a platform, it's our way to give back to the industry where we learned so many things from. So Shreya, Amit, Ritesh, thank you so much for this commitment of yours today. It means a lot. And thank you, Nishika. Thank you, CIPR, for thinking of this initiative and following up through and hosting this today.
But
thank you so much,
everyone, again, and for being there throughout. And even though it ran over time, all of you were so committed. So that's a pleasure. And it showcases that PR professionals are full of integrity and that this is a profession to reckon with. It is not tactical, it is strategic. The insights shared today were definitely strategic. They addressed how to make a foray, how to address the media, how to be able to take a stand, what kind of celebrity, endorsements, followers, social media. So I think it's definitely been a very strategic session. And thanks to all of you for taking it up in the CIPR International Annals as one of the really good doing PR in series we've had so far. Thanks again. Take care. And thank you to
Okay,
all
thank
the attendees for asking so many questions. It was
Uh-huh.
literally breathtaking and mind-blowing, but it made the panel very engaging, and it allowed,
Sure.
I think, all of us to be our best today. So thank you again.
All right. Thanks, Bank.
Thank you very much.